introduce Harry Miller. Harry Miller is a very special young man. Harry Miller grew up in Buford, Georgia. Went to Buford High School, was one of the top offensive linemen in the country. Also was the valedictorian of his high school when I actually recruited him. And funny story about Harry, he took the ACT, was he the ACT or the SAT? Didn't quite get a perfect score and kept taking it again because he wanted to get a perfect score. It's just the way Harry Miller was wired. He's highly successful, very, very talented, extremely intelligent, but has a tremendous amount of compassion. We knew early on that Harry was special. He would go down to Nicaragua and do mission trips and have an impact on so many people down in Nicaragua. And his heart was as big as anyone's I'd been around. But then once he got to Ohio State, we realized what a talented football player he was. Harry got on the field early, which is hard to do at Ohio State as an offensive lineman, and was a part of a Big Ten championship team, and really had a great impact on our team and played well early. And certainly was poised to have a promising career, but certainly had his challenges. And I think the thing, and Harry can kind of share his story with you, the thing to me that just strikes me about Harry is his courage. He's had a lot of challenges, and he took them on head first. And it's not easy to be vulnerable. It's not easy to put your stuff out there for everybody. And just because Harry's come public doesn't mean that everything's good. This is a struggle for him that he continues to live with on a daily basis. But I can tell you this, in the conversations that we had leading up to him kind of going public with some of his struggles, he was terrified about what people would think. But the amount of support that he's felt throughout the community and nationally, I know has warmed his heart, and he's found some peace in that. He shared that with me. But I all think we all need to recognize that this is a courageous young man, somebody who's put himself out there. And I know he saved people's lives and had an impact on so many people in this area. And I know we're all proud to have him part of the Buckeye community. I just want to introduce somebody that I love dearly, Harry Miller.
Thank you all. Normally, I would open by giving thanks, as most people do. However, that is very difficult to do this time, not for lack of people, but for an abundance of them. Many of whom I never expected to have needed, and beyond that, I never expected for them to help me as graciously as they did. However, I can thank Ms. Holly and Dr. Fahn for getting coffee with me many months ago to discuss this event and for asking me to speak at it. So thank you too. And also, of course, thank you to my mother, who is here. Who is always here, wherever here is when I need her to be. In addition, I would normally open with a joke, as most people do. However, it's hard to find a pun that segues briefly into topics of depression and suicide. Alas, the current mental health joke book is nowhere near as thick nor comprehensive as the DSM-5. I hope there's a lot of psychiatry people here, because that's the best I can do. However, if they ever get to make one, maybe that can be the first joke. As I said, there are not many jokes nor stories that make light of mental health. The topic is rather morose. However, I believe that it is these heavy subjects and these somber undertakings that require the lightest speech and the brightest actions. I do not know what this speech sounds like, and I do not know what deeds might be required of me, but I will venture to try by simply sharing a story, my story in particular. Coach Day actually did a great video because it segues really well. We didn't even collaborate, but it segues really well into what I'll talk about. I came to Ohio State in 2019 as a highly rated recruit. I was filled with prophecies of riches and fame. I would become an academic All-American, a Campbell Trophy winner. My name would be called in front of millions to people and millions of people to announce the millions of dollars I would be earning, and my name would be etched into a brick and placed in Buckeye Grove beneath the shade of a tree under the colossus shadow of Ohio Stadium. I would become a captain, a leader of men who I would consider my greatest friends. That would be me. That would be my legacy. This was the route that was laid out ahead of me. All that was left was for me to do it. My first summer here in Columbus, the new crop of freshmen wrote their goals down so that the staff could see what our goals were, and so that by writing them down, they might be easier to achieve. There was a section for academic goals, weight room goals, football goals, and finally personal goals. In the first three, I of course hinted at the things I previously mentioned. I then got to the final section for personal goals. Some here wrote extensions of the former goals, earning a role in special teams, improving grades, what have you. For some reason, though, this section deeply struck me, terrified me even. I wrote down, be a good man. I do not know why that was impressed upon my heart so much that I felt the need to put it down, but it was, so I did. Months passed, and with them years. I contributed as a second-team player my freshman year. I did well in school. I started as left guard for the Ohio State Buckeyes football team my sophomore year. I was able to contribute to a Big Ten championship. I was voted third-team conference player. I earned an award for being a distinguished conference scholar even. This was the route that was laid out ahead of me. All that was left was for me to do it. Then I was a rising junior. I was training hard, improving my body. Agents were meeting with me, telling me with a good season I could go in the second or third round, and within a year I would be $10 million richer. I was getting close with my teammates, trying hard to lead. I came in 7th out of the 6 captains voted for that season. August came, everything was in order. Everything was in order. But it was not. Every night I stood in front of my mirror and pressed my pointer and middle finger into the side of my head and wished I had a gun so that I could stop rehearsing my death and finally bring it upon myself. I walked through the Woody Hayes athletic facility, and the weight room green bands hung loosely for players to stretch with, but to me they looked like nooses. I spoke with many of my friends, and when we said goodbye to one another, I understood the full weight of those goodbyes. Eventually it became too much. Something had to give one way or another, and that is when I began my journey to try to heal from what I was experiencing. And it was not easy. It was not linear in nature. I played 2 games with scaly cuts covered in dry blood on my arms and neck. I smiled and shook hands with hundreds of screaming people after hoping to die the night before. I was convinced of my obsoleteness when I saw pregame rituals that I had with some of my teammates filled by others, secret handshakes just between 2 people, now shared with the third, and the second was forgotten. Several nights I stood in front of my mirror, pressing a blade into my skin. I stared down my reflection to see who would blink first, who had more resolve. I pressed the blade hard until it bit me and drew blood. I was in so much pain. I was so confused. This is the route that is laid out ahead of me. And all that is left is for me to do it. But it was not, I did not. I fought to make it so, and it is so that I am here. And I'm not standing here before you millions of dollars richer like some of my classmates, as I thought I would be. If you go to Buckeye Grove, you will not find my name anywhere. I'm no longer eligible for the Werfel or Campbell Awards. I'm not a captain of your 2022 Ohio State Buckeyes. However, a few months ago, I was sitting in a mom-and-pop diner in Arlington, Virginia by myself one evening. A few months after I had made the decision to publicly share that I was retiring from football. I was sitting alone there. I was wondering if I had made the right decision. I wished I was stronger. I wished I was braver. There were 5 other people in the diner, 2 individuals sitting at the bar top, and a family of 3 sitting along the opposite wall. I brought a book to read as I usually do when I go to eat by myself, as I usually do. I ordered a black coffee and an omelet with 2 slices of wheat toast. When the food came, I put my book away and I began to eat. I was almost finished with my meal as the family of 3 got up to leave. The father and child went out the door towards their car, and the mother went to the register to pay. I was taking a sip from my coffee when she walked past me to leave. She looked at me like she had seen me before. I had my coffee to my lips. When she patted me on the shoulder and in a hushed voice said, "You are a good man, Harry." And she kept walking. She was already at the door before I realized I still had my cup raised to my mouth. This is the route that is laid out ahead of me. All that is left is for me to do it. The good path does not necessarily feel good. In fact, it likely won't. In fact, it will more than likely feel like the wrong path the entire time you walk it. I would like to close with a very brief anecdote, though I guess this has all been one big anecdote, and hopefully it has felt brief. I met with Dr. Fine and Ms. Holly months ago in a cafe by my apartment. We talked about the current crisis of mental health, especially in our young people, and particularly at our university. As we talked and spilled such small words that seemed to echo in the presence of such large ideas and obstacles, I mused how it felt like a little boy waking up every morning and heading to the beach at sunrise to work on a sandcastle. And every day, just as the sun is about to set, the tides rise and sweep away his creation right as he's about to finish. I don't know if you two remember that. This image of this little boy printed itself in my brain, and I wondered what that little boy might say had I the chance to speak with him. So here's my answer. Here's a very quick story about a little boy, the beach, and building sandcastles. One morning, a little boy woke to the sound of water tumbling over itself just outside his window. The sun peeked through and shone in his hair, which was the same color as the tall golden grass that grew in the dunes between his home and the shore. Quickly, he sprang out of bed and rapidly threw on the shoes he would more rapidly take off once he reached the sand. He rushed out the door to the sound of seagulls squawking, ropes stinging against the metal masts of sailboats stuck nearby. He got to the shore as the tide was far away, and he began his work. He fashioned parapets out of seashells and made the battlement firm with his sturdy, wet sand. Throughout the day, the castle grew taller, and the tide grew nearer. He built a moat around the castle, but no moat was ever big enough to hold back an entire ocean. And as the sun waned, the tide approached the doorstep of his creation. And as the boy was about to mount the final piece of seaweed as the flag atop his tallest tower, the ocean rolled in and carved out the foundations of his lofty walls. In the dying sun, the light made the sand glitter, but every speck of sand was torn asunder, and all that was once shining returned into the dark obscurity of the ocean's depths. The seashells protruded from the ground like tombstones. The seaweed floated just beneath the water's surface like a drowned maiden's hair. The boy watched his castle fall and his eyes gleamed, for the sun shone upon those too. He got up from his knees, and he wiped away the sand that remained on them. He then wiped his hands against each other, and he returned home. And the next day, he awoke, and he did everything once again. A man saw this boy doing this every day, and the man realized what a waste of time it was to build castles that could not stand for more than a few moments. So he walked up to the boy, and he asked, "Why do you come here every day to build a sandcastle that always falls?" The boy looked up at the man with a confused look, not because he did not have an answer for such a question, but because the boy did not know why somebody would ask such a question in the first place. "Why do you come out here every day?" The man asked again. "Because the sand is soft," the boy said, "and the water feels good. There is no brick that bears my name. I will not be placed in the annals of award winners. All of us here may never be able to behold our sandcastles at sunset. Perhaps there will be no lofty buildings that scream our glories. However, I am content with the singular voice of a stranger in a faraway diner, barely uttering mine. Castles will not stand, but that is okay. It is not the brick and mortar that will prevail. It will be the blood and marrow of those who care. And at that point, who cares about bricks? Who cares about record books? At that point, who cares about sandcastles even? A single thank you in a hushed voice will be enough. The good path does not necessarily feel good. If you take a moment, you may notice that the sand is soft and the water feels good. A single thank you in a hushed voice is enough. Thank you.